In every wedding, there's a moment when the whole world seems to glow, flowers sparkle under chandelier light, laughter blends with music, and families gather in perfect harmony. But as the guests raised their glasses for the couple's first dance, one corner of the hall remained painfully silent. A young woman sat alone in her wheelchair, her dress shimmering but her eyes fixed on the ground. People glanced at her then quickly turned away, pretending not to notice. She didn't belong to the shadows, yet there she was, forgotten in the middle of celebration. And that's when a single dad walked in late, adjusting his son's tie, only to stop, staring at her as if he was the first person all night who actually saw her. His son tugged his hand and whispered, "Dad, why is she all alone?" That question changed everything. The story begins with Elena Preston, daughter of billionaire Clifford Preston, known for her beauty, grace, and kindness, until a tragic accident left her paralyzed from the waist down a year before her cousin's wedding. The world she once moved through so confidently suddenly became narrow, filled with pitying looks and hushed conversations she wasn't meant to hear. But she did. Every word. And each one built another wall around her heart. When the family gathered for the grand wedding, she hoped for a moment of warmth. A smile. A welcome. Something. But as she arrived at the hall, her relatives exchanged polite greetings before drifting off, too uncomfortable to linger. People didn't know how to talk to her anymore. Some thought silence was kindness. Some pretended they didn't see her. Others whispered about the poor Preston girl, as if her disability overshadowed her existence. She kept a gentle smile for everyone, but deep inside, she counted every second, wishing she hadn't come. Meanwhile, Daniel Carter rushed into the hall completely unaware of the tangled social threads around him. A single dad raising his 7-year-old son, Noah. He'd been invited because he worked as the groom's physical therapist after the groom's sports injury last year. He wasn't wealthy, powerful, or part of the elite world surrounding the Prestons. He was, in everyone else's eyes, simply the guy who fixed people's backs and helped them walk again. But he had something money couldn't give: empathy. Noah, bright-eyed and sincere, noticed things that adults missed. And when he saw Elena sitting alone despite the laughter around her, he tugged his father's sleeve with concern. Daniel's eyes landed on Elena, and stayed there. Not because of the wheelchair, but because of the loneliness she tried so desperately to hide behind a polite expression. He excused himself from the crowd and walked toward her. She looked up in surprise, almost confused that someone was actually approaching her on purpose. He offered a warm smile. "Hi. I'm Daniel. And this is my son, Noah. We came a little late. But Noah had a question for me, one I think only you can answer. If you don't mind." She blinked, startled, then glanced at Noah, who stepped closer with innocent honesty. "Are you sitting alone because no one wants to sit with you?" "'Cause I'll sit with you. You look nice." For a moment, Elena forgot how to breathe. No adult had spoken to her like that, not with pity, not with fear, but with simple humanity. She swallowed the lump in her throat and forced her voice to stay steady. "Thank you, Noah. You're very sweet." Then she looked at Daniel and saw he wasn't embarrassed by the child's question. He was waiting patiently, letting Elena respond however she needed. She didn't know why, but that simple patience felt like a lifeline. Throughout the ceremony, Daniel and Noah stayed beside her. They talked, really talked. Daniel didn't flinch from her wheelchair. He didn't stare at it. He asked about her interests, her favorite books, her dreams before the accident, and the ones she still carried. She found herself laughing, something she hadn't done freely in months. And when the music began and couples filled the dance floor, Elena looked away, reminding herself she didn't belong there anymore. But Daniel leaned down slightly and whispered, "If you ever want to try, I'd be honored." She froze. No one had invited her to dance since the accident. Not even her own family. Her throat tightened. "I can't," she whispered. "Who said anything about dancing with your legs?" he replied gently. Then he guided her wheelchair to the edge of the dance floor, placing his hands on hers as the song played softly around them. He moved in slow, graceful sways, matching the rhythm, guiding her shoulders with an ease that made the room blur. And for the first time in a year, Elena didn't feel broken. She felt alive. But whispers rose behind them. People stared. Her relatives exchanged uncomfortable looks. Her father froze in disbelief. Elena's heart pounded in fear, until Daniel leaned closer and murmured, "Ignore them. Tonight is yours too." Tears filled her eyes. She nodded, letting herself enjoy the moment. Later that night, they talked outside under the string lights. Daniel didn't ask what happened to her. He didn't need every detail to understand her pain. "You know," he said softly, "being left out doesn't mean you don't belong. Sometimes it just means you haven't met the right people yet." She looked at him, overwhelmed by how easily he spoke to her, as if she wasn't fragile or pitiful, just human. Beautifully human. Then Noah came running. "Dad, they're cutting the cake. Come on." Daniel turned to Elena. "Will you join us?" She hesitated, but Noah grabbed her hand gently. "Please," he said. That one word shattered every wall inside her. She nodded. Inside the hall, her father watched as Daniel guided her toward the family table. Something shifted in the billionaire's expression: guilt, realization, maybe even hope. He approached slowly. "Elena. I'm sorry. I should have been beside you." She stared at him, feeling years' worth of bottled grief rise. "I wasn't asking for a crowd," she whispered. "Just someone." Daniel stood by her side silently, offering quiet support. Her father sighed, eyes misty, and placed his hand on hers. "I'll do better. I promise." The night ended with laughter, real conversations, and Elena surrounded by people for the first time since her accident, but the person she remembered most was Daniel. Not because he saved her, but because he saw her before anyone else did. In the weeks that followed, he and Noah visited often. They took her on small outings, encouraged her therapy, and listened to her fears without judgment. Daniel never treated her like someone whose life had stopped. He treated her like someone whose story was still unfolding. Slowly, she believed it too. Months later, at a quiet garden cafe bench overlooking a sparkling pond, Elena thanked Daniel with a soft, trembling voice. "You asked me why I was alone that night," she whispered. "I wasn't anymore the moment you walked in." Daniel smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And you'll never be again, unless you want to be." Her heart fluttered. She didn't need anyone to complete her, but she had found someone who celebrated her strength, not her limitations. As the sun dipped behind the trees, Noah ran up holding 2 ice creams. "One for you," he said proudly to Elena. "And one for my dad because he likes you." Elena laughed through tears. She knew then, with unshakable certainty, that what began as a wedding moment of loneliness had grown into something rare: hope, healing, and a future she had once thought impossible. And that single question, "Why is she alone?" had rewritten her entire world.